world's changing. And you are right in the center of it.
I don't know what's ahead, but all bets are off.
We have a couple of fights coming up this weekend we should talk about for just a second. There's a UFC card and a Bellator card. We start with UFC, headlined by a heavyweight fight between Aleksei Oleinik and Derrick Lewis. BC, the question would be, what would happen if Lewis wins here? Should he get another crack at Francis? Now, Francis has said, listen, I've won 4 in a row. I've beaten all these former champions. I'm not fighting again unless it's for a title or something like that. Now, I'm not suggesting that they put an interim title fight on the winner of this one versus Francis, but just thinking out loud, if there was a way to make it, and maybe there's not, I would love to see, actually, believe it or not, a second fight between Derrick Lewis and Francis, despite the first one being a literal all-time stinker in MMA history. And the reason why is because, one, it would just make sense from their positions in the division, but two, more importantly, part of what you're trying to discover with Francis is something that these other champions he's beaten have not been able to show us, which is how much change has he made since the loss to Stipe, since the loss to Lewis. The last 2 times, in fact, he has lost. We've heard about all his growth, and yes, he's been winning, but he's knocking these fools out in like the quickest amount of time. You're just not getting a full read. Maybe Derrick Lewis tells us that, maybe he doesn't, but the whole premise of this growth that Francis has apparently undergone is that he can now answer for challenges like this. So between where they are in the divisions, it'd be a 3-fight win streak for Derrick Lewis with Bogloy, Ivanov, Ilir Latifi, and this one, if he can get it, it would make a ton of sense. How easy it is to make, I don't know. But honestly, despite the first one sucking ass, BC, I would love to see the second one.
I mean, cool story, bro, but it would not make a ton of sense right now, Luke. It would be a giant step back for Francis Ngannou. Those names you just mentioned that Derrick Lewis had beat, it's like, okay, that's great, but those aren't the highest level names. I mean, a lot of people didn't even think he beat Latifi. So, look, he's a step down at the moment, right? There was a time when he shined himself up and got lucky against Volkov and got himself into a title fight, and he's great on the mic and all that stuff. But he's not that dude. Ngannou shouldn't go back to that right now. Ngannou should get on a plane. Or actually, he doesn't have to. He lives in Vegas. He lives in Brett Okamoto's old house. I've been in there. I partied in there. Shout out to my man Brett on the birth of his first child. But Ngannou should show up with a mask and be there cage side ready to walk in when Stipe and Dise do it for the 3-pay time right out there. You know who Derrick Lewis should fight if he wins? Curtis Blades, that's who he should fight, because Dana hates him right now for quote-unquote talking shit, and it would seem to be a perfect stay busy fight, stay outside the title picture, be ready to potentially face Ngannou a third time if Ngannou ends up becoming the champion after that. But no, Luke, don't drag Frank the Tank back into this. That first fight sucked. Lewis needs more than that to get back in it. I mean, who else do you want Ngannou to knock out? He's been destroying elite level guys, okay, Luke?
Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing with Shabazian. It tells you you're good, and yes, it's not the same thing in the sense that he hasn't been fighting enough guys, but eventually someone in MMA puts it on you. Now, maybe Derrick Lewis isn't that guy, but hello, he's already beaten, Francis has, Curtis Blades twice, so you can't do that one a third time, even though he beat Volkov. You're right, you could do Lewis versus Curtis Blades. Is there really any mystery to that one? Is there really any kind of sense that you have about how that one's going to go? I don't think so. There is actually a little bit of mystery, I think, with Lewis and Francis. We are so put off.
Do you believe Lewis would earn it?
We're so put off by the first one. I get it. It sucked. It sucked our will to live. I have a strong suspicion the second one wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's nice. But weigh the resumes against each other since that fight. Even if Lewis beats Oleinik, who I love and is on a nice little run here, it's not the same ballgame. He doesn't deserve it.
I agree, except part of the guys he's beating are pretty highly ranked. You can make that Blades fight, but I think that's a waste of everyone's time. I don't think this would be a waste. Now, except for Francis, I agree. He doesn't need to take this fight, but they would have made him an interim champion if they thought that was something they wanted to really put in his direction. The fact that they didn't means they might have one more fight in mind for him. I guess we're going to have to see, especially what if DC wins and then drops the belt? They might have to do Stipe versus Francis too, or how do you give a title shot to the guy who just lost in the title fight? Can you imagine it, BC? They might do Francis versus Derrick Lewis for a title fight.
Dude,
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I know Dana hates Curtis Blades, but if both of those guys retire August 15th after this epic 5-round war, you do Ngannou Blades 3 for the title. You do it, Luke, okay? You do it.
You might. We'll also have Bellator, I believe August 7th, which should be a Friday, back at Mohegan Sun, which is where, of course, the first Bellator card was, and Saturday's Showtime card. They're both going to be sharing resources down there. It was interesting. I actually thought that the Showtime set looked better. It was a little bit darker than the other one. But I don't know, is this my imagination? Did they have music between rounds on the Bellator show? I feel like they did.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't
All right,
know.
but neither here nor there. The point being is this. Going to have a rematch between former champions, one in UFC and certainly one in Bellator, with Michael Chandler and Benson Henderson. Now, the first fight was actually super exciting, with Chandler coming out to a commanding lead early, but Henderson showing incredible grit and putting it on him late. Still, Chandler getting his hand raised. They're going to make it one more time. Now, this is an interesting fight, BC, because Benson was a big acquisition from UFC for Bellator. Initially, he was not performing the way that they had hoped. I think of late, he's done a lot better. Chandler, it seems like on the last fight of his deal, might be looking for a way out. So is this the chance for the guy who was supposed to be the golden boy and wasn't, to also put it on the guy who was maybe the golden boy but now isn't?
Yeah, this is a great fight, Luke. No one's talking about this fight Friday night, Bellator. This is a fantastic one, not just because of the star power and the rematch of how good their first one was, but for everything you just mentioned. Benson Henderson came in as a big signing, lost title fights in 2 different divisions in his first 3 fights. And I think his only win during that time didn't come on like a freaky leg kick. Like, he didn't look good in the beginning.
To a 145er, yes.
Yes, he's rebuilt himself nicely with 4 wins in a row. And Chandler is, your face of the franchise outside of Pitbull. So I talked to him about 2 months ago, Luke, and it was a really refreshing interview. As you mentioned, this is the last fight of his deal. He knows his value. He would be very happy if Scott Coker and company would give him the dollar value that he thinks he deserves at age 34 to essentially retire with Bellator, sign his last deal, fight out all those big names, chase Patricio Freire a 3rd time and go after his title that he lost by knockout. He'd love to get Eddie Alvarez back in there if his one deal ever expires, all that great stuff. But he's also willing to walk depending on what the market tells him. And you look at this guy, Luke, he's in almost the same spot Eddie Alvarez was when he walked from Bellator, where when he went to UFC, I'm like, okay, he's in a killer deep division. He'll make fun fights, but I can't see him ever competing for a title. And what did he do? He lost that close fight to Cowboy, and he went out there and he won the damn title. So you do never know. Michael Chandler would make so many great fights in the UFC in the midst of this historically deep division that it would be obviously as smart as he could to exit his deal with his brand as strong as possible, which is why he is wired and dialed in. This fight was supposed to take place 2 different times in the last few months. He's been in camp the whole time. He's ready. You're dying of a coughing fit over there. I hope it's not COVID, but this is a great fight, Luke. And if Chandler wins, I would like to see what his value is on the open market as much as I'd like to see him go back in there against Pitbull one more time.
Yeah, I have conflicting feelings about Chandler leaving Bellator. On the one hand, it would make perfect sense because you've sort of seen what he's going to do in Bellator at the high end, at the middle end, and at the low end. We've got a full range of the experiences, the sort of weird fight against Brent Primus, the loss to Pitbull for the double belts, but some of the more dramatic wins, including the one over Eddie Alvarez. I mean, he's been doing this since the Bjorn Rebney tournament days, and the fact that he's held on this long in ways where, like, other guys who did those tournaments, like Pat Curran, they got ground into dust because of them, but he's found a way to persevere. It's been pretty interesting. So I would like to see something new for him. On the other hand, I don't think that, while he might win on Friday, I don't want to take that away from him. To your point, he's a hard, dedicated worker. How good would he do in that lion's den of a division in UFC? A few years ago, I might have a different opinion. Now, I'm certain he could win. Could he go and get a belt there? I'm less than convinced that that's a good thing for him.
We're historically deep. Yeah, it'd be tough. It'd be tough, but
it'd be interesting. It'd be new. It'd be something different. We'll have to see. And by the way, last thing about this, you think about some of the best fighters who never fought in UFC. Normally, these considerations just don't mean anything anymore because there's no more pride to acquire. There's no more strike force to acquire. Chandler would be somewhere on that list. And if you ever remember the days of Hector Lombard getting signed from Bellator, I remember Stephan Bonner complaining to me on the set of MMA Uncensored Live. He was like, dude, Hector Lombard's getting like $400K per fight because he got acquired from Bellator. It might also be possible, depending how he looks on Friday, for Michael Chandler, if he wants to bounce, if the UFC is still in that business, to get potentially a bit of a pay bump if he looks good, if that's something they're still interested in doing. So a little bit of a historical footnote there as well.
Did Craig Carton try to sell you a timeshare backstage at all?
No, but I spoke to him recently. Did I tell you that?
Oh, tell us.
No, I will not.
Are you in?
This is our time. The world's changed, and you are right in the center of it.
I don't know what's ahead, but all bets are off.